So there seems to be some confusion about the way that you have to UV text, how you have to UV models. Uh, and it's something that I've noticed across a lot of students and a lot of younger people who are in school, is that there's this idea that when you UV map something, that there's only one way to do it. So I'm going to go into a little bit of history as to how, or the way that it has been done and it's done now, and the instances in which you use one versus the other. So traditionally, if I had a complex object that um, I needed to UV, I would just start by selecting the object, and if I unwrap these UVs right now, you can see that they're nicely kind of placed in my space from 0, which is left, bottom left, to 1, which is the U, or just because it's UV space, it's not XY space, we're just naming it something else, so we know what we're talking about. It's just a label. So 0 to 1 in U, and up and down is V, because if I said Y, you would think I was talking about vector space or 3D space that my models exist in. But that's not the case. So right now, every single polygon has its own pixel. So if I want to paint this thing perfectly, I can, right? Which is an advantage. If I'm doing a face, or if I'm doing an animal, then I want my UVs to be laid out like this. But if I have 60 shelves and 25 boxes or 100 boxes that I have to UV, well, your time is always valuable, whether you're a student or whether you're a professional or whatever. You want to use your time as wisely as possible. So even if you don't have 60, you just need to get some color onto your shelf. Well, this isn't the way to do it. Even though you can kind of auto map it. The other thing is, though, if I want to use a tiling texture, this isn't an efficient way to do it. Let's pretend that I have a floor that I'm going to put a pattern on. Well, that pattern, I don't need to make a texture map that's like 8K and then just tile it on there. I can just make one that's like 512. By the way, maybe I'll do a video on what's called power of 2. Computers like power of 2 just because it fits in memory. It makes things efficient. And it's easy to do once you understand it. That's a giant that's a giant waste of time and memory. So I can make one tile and then duplicate that across my floor. Like for instance, I have this light gray and dark gray, those 4 squares, and then I can just duplicate it up and down on my floor. So if I was to quickly map this, I can select it. I can select all my stuff, go to UV map, and this goes across the board. And right now, if I just look at it from this direction, and let's say I make my lengths 50 by 50, if I look at my shelf from this direction, it'll look great. But if I look at it like this, it's going to be stretched. Because it's projecting the UVs directly straight from above. That'll make more sense in just a second. If you can go into Google and just type UV checker. And this is 3D Studio Max. But the fundamental is the same in any 3D program. And I'm just going to go over here and select my material that I just made and apply it to the whole thing. So you can see if I select my gizmo, which is just a square, it's saying I'm projecting it from this direction. But if I look at it from the front, everything is stretched. Same thing like this. I'm just projecting this in whatever direction that UV happens to be facing. Okay. So as long as I look at it from the front, great. From the side, not so well. But it's an easy thing to fix, because rather than using a plane to project everything, I'm just going to use a box to project everything. So now in this case, I can make it, say, 50 inches. Now, if I move that box, or if any polygon that's facing the direction to the right is going to be projected from that one. Anyone that's facing to the front is going to be projected to that one, and top, so on. Right? If I unwrap all of this, now rather than having that clean UV space, I can look at it and it looks like a mess, but it really isn't. It's just the computer's deciding, or the program's deciding, what face is facing what direction, what polygon is facing what direction, and it's using that map to stick it on there. And the nice thing about this is that, number one, you can do it in 3 seconds. And if it's something that's like a side prop that you just need to get some texture on, you haven't wasted your time. And if you get into your program and say, well, it's too small, like this 5 and this 6 needs to be a lot bigger, rather than coming back and re-UVing or making it bigger, you just tile your texture bigger or smaller. You just shrink it or expand it, depending on how big you need your texture.